Hey, what's up guys? My name's Josh Winiarski, and I'm a photographer, filmmaker, and I'm also out of focus. Well, alright, so for those of you tuning in for the first time, this is episode 3 in my beginner camera tutorial series. We're teaching you everything you need to know to operate a camera. Now there aren't any prereqs to this video, so if you're a little bit worried about starting in the middle of the series, don't be, just sit back, relax, and if you learn something or really enjoy the video, feel free to check out the other episodes, they'll be linked in the description below. Alright, so today we're talking about focusing with your camera. And yes, that may sound like a silly video, but nailing focus is one of the most important aspects to any image. If you miss focus or it's just out of focus even slightly, it can ruin an otherwise good shot, so let's just make sure you're doing it correctly. Okay, so ignoring things like eye tracking and face tracking, you're gonna have 3 main types of autofocus. You're gonna have one shot, AI focus, and AI servo. It's important to make sure you're using the correct autofocus mode for the correct circumstance, so let's go through them real quick. Okay, so first up is one shot, and one shot is essentially your most basic autofocus setting. If you're shooting anything like stills, landscapes, one shot is your go-to. A lot of you are probably pretty familiar with this one. You hold down the shutter halfway, it checks the distance, sets a plane of focus, and locks it there. If you want to change that focal plane, lift your finger off the shutter, press it halfway again, it'll check the distance, put another plane of focus there, that's your plane of focus. If I'm shooting portraits with not a lot of movement, if I'm shooting landscapes, if I'm shooting products, if I'm making a thumbnail, typically this is what I'm going to use. But this isn't the only type of autofocus you need to use. If either you're moving or your subject's moving, you're going to miss a lot of shots if you're stuck on one shot. This is where AI servo comes in. AI servo, as long as you've got your finger on that shutter, it's not setting a plane of focus. The lens is continually hunting back and forth, making micro adjustments to make sure whatever your focus point is on is in focus. If I'm doing like a jumping shot, or I'm shooting wildlife, or anything with movement, AI servo is my go-to. Last but not least, we've got AI focus, which is a hybrid of the two. What AI focus does is it defaults to one shot, but if the camera thinks it sees any movement, switches over to servo and starts hunting back and forth, trying to keep its subject in focus. A lot of the time if I'm going on hikes or I'm doing street photography, or I just don't know what I'm going to be shooting, this is a great option. It kind of does everything for me. It's not always perfect, but it's a good all-arounder. Now, in theory, you could just use AI servo for everything. Seems like if the lens is always keeping things in focus, that seems like the best option, right? Well, it's certainly not a bad option, but it's not always ideal for still photography. One of the main reasons I like one shot so much is it's going to give you an audible beep when it's locked focus. If your lens is always hunting for focus, you can actually take shots before the lens is locked onto that object without knowing. On top of that, if you're ever putting an object in the foreground or doing some creative framing, if your lens is always hunting for focus, it might focus on the wrong object. If you're using one shot, you can lock focus on what you want, maybe put something in the frame, a light, a prism, something like that, and your camera's still going to be focused on what you want. Now you heard me mention the word focus point earlier in this video. What the heck is that? Well, put simply, a focus point is just a point somewhere in the frame that your camera can grab focus from. Your camera could have 9 focus points, making like a sort of diamond shape. It could have 45 covering the whole frame, or some newer cameras literally have over 100 different points all throughout the frame that the camera can focus from. Either way, knowing how to choose which points are active and knowing how to move them is a huge thing in photography. And I didn't learn how to do it for the first few months, so hopefully this helps some of you out. Now, if you're walking around, you don't know what you're going to be shooting, oftentimes you're just going to want to fill the center with focus points. A lot of the time I just make a square in the center of the frame and I'm good to go. But oftentimes if you want to do creative framing, or you need to be very pinpoint accurate with your focusing, I just use one point. And this is something I've been doing a lot more, especially if I'm shooting with a shallow depth of field. I need to make sure my focus points are exactly where I want. So I put one point in the center, and then I just move it around if the shot demands it. See, I think the big problem, and this honestly blew my mind when I first figured it out, is having focus points only in the center of the frame is just a huge limiter to your creativity. Think of it this way, if you can move your focus points, you could have something in the top right corner be in focus and everything else out of focus. You could have something on the left, on the bottom, on the top, on the right, anything else you can think of. It's not a complicated process, but it's important you know that you can do it. Real quick story, when I was first taking portraits for other people, I got a brand new 50mm lens, chucked that baby on aperture 1.8, and I was feeling pretty good about myself. So what I actually did is I put up a little ad on Facebook, got 2 responses to take portraits in the same day, and went out to shoot them with my 50mm lens. Now, the shoot actually went well. It was super fun. I got some great experience, got some awesome looking photos, or so I thought. So while on the back LCD screen everything looked good, subject was sharp, background was out of focus, it turns out that in like half the shots, their face was just ever so slightly out of focus. The reason for that is I didn't move my focus point to the eyes or even the face. The focus point was on their chest instead of their face, so everything was slightly off. Now, they were sort of salvageable in post, but I was so embarrassed. As soon as I sent them off to him afterwards, I was just like, yeah. So moral of the story, get comfortable with focusing, know what the different modes do and when to use them. This will help you a ton down the road. Now there's also manual focus, which we could go over in this video, but I think we'll just leave that aside from now. We'll worry about that in a later video. I think it's relatively easy to forget about focusing modes and focusing points when you're learning all this other stuff, but it is important. Don't forget about it. It's the best way to get your images as sharp as possible. Anyways, that's how you focus correctly. This is one of those things, it's not going to come up as frequently when you're Googling beginner photography tutorials, but I think it's really important. I didn't learn it till a few months into my photography career, so you've already got a leg up on me. As always, if you like the video, be sure to like it. If you have any questions, have any comments, hit up that comment section down below, and if you want to see more videos like this, consider subscribing to the channel. Thanks again for watching. My name's Josh Winiarski. Check me out on Instagram, and I'll see you all in the next one.